So the Chiopatino update, it was pretty good with food. I wouldn't say it made the salmon amazing or anything. The wine has certainly a lightness to it. That 12.5%, easy drinking, a red wine that's lighter. I enjoy it. I'd probably try one more Chiopatino, maybe with a higher alcohol content, see if I could get a little more character to it. I did get a little bit of peppery note as it opened up. Not a ton, just a little bit. Not as peppery as I say Syrah or Zinfandel can sometimes be. The black pepper, I mean. So, glad I tried it. It's definitely in that lighter style. I think it's easy drinking, lighter style type of wine. Didn't smell like Italy. I know I always say that about Italian wine. It didn't scream at me like it was Italy. Because the herbs were sort of missing. So, now a little bit of Chardonnay. So here's the 2018 Bourgogne Au Côte de Beaune Chardonnay. So, from a little above the generic white Burgundy Chardonnays. So this one, and I got this one also from Princeton to Corkscrew, $29. And I had this the other night, and it was very good. So, I know it sounds silly, but it smells like Chardonnay. You definitely smell a little bit of oak, not a ton. I think what I've read, it's funny, because now I have a Wine Spectator magazine article talking about California Chardonnays and how they've just restrained the style to follow more the Burgundian style, which is less oak. Sometimes they don't even do malolactic fermentation, where they turn that malic acid into lactic acid to add like a little less acidity but more creaminess and a more roundness to the wine. But if they don't do the malolactic, the wine ends up being a little bit more razor sharp and like a little more acidic. So I feel like this one's got malolactic, which is fine. Most reds are malolactic. Whites it depends. Sort of softens and rounds out the wine. Makes it a little more full body, but sometimes it adds a little bit too much. If you do that malolactic plus too much oak, that's where you got that old style Chardonnay that got that bad reputation, over oak Chardonnays out of Cali, and then that ABC thing, anything but Chardonnay, where I absolutely disagree. I absolutely love Chardonnay. Some of the most expensive white wine in the world is Chardonnay out of the Grand Cru vineyards, out of Burgundy, out of the Côte de Nuit and Côte de Beaune, the two, and that whole area is called the Côte d'Or. I think it's called the Golden Coast. No, Golden something. Golden Slope, maybe. I mean, this one's really good. It's got that little bit of like an apple skin, baked apple thing, but not heavy. I let this actually warm up a little bit. This is actually probably where this white wine should be, and it's got tons of aromatics. Yeah, it's got that apple skin. I feel like I like when I could smell and taste baked apple pie on a Chardonnay. So this one cold actually didn't show as well as it's showing now, and I let it warm up. This definitely feels like a different wine than the other night. I would definitely rate this higher today than I did the other night. I mean, the acid's there, pear, persimmon, not the honey aspect of persimmon, but sort of the texture and like an unsweetened persimmon. Definitely that apple skin. I really like this wine. So, then we got the Open Source 2018, and I talked about this in the unboxing that I did about Princeton Corkscrew and Working Dog. I didn't show it. So this has been in the fridge for a bit, and I just saw it the other day. So this is where they're taking all the 5 co-op wineries in New Jersey are taking all their Chardonnay that they grow for open source. They mash it together. They get it all together. They do the crush, get all the juices out, and then they each take a fifth, and then they vinify it any way they want. And this is Working Dog's version of it, which I tend to. The last 3 years, I thought this was their best Chardonnay. They'll have a number of Chardonnays, unoaked in stainless steel, an oaked version, I think a French oak version, and then this version. And I always typically like the unoaked, the stainless steel, because it's got like a tropicality to it that I really dig. They didn't have it this year. They ran out. This one, 3 years in a row, I've liked the open source. It's got a little bit like a kiss of oak. It's got good bright acidity, and typically just right in my wheelhouse of where I like Chardonnay, and this is $30. So these are both pretty much equitable in price, $29 to $30, $29.99 to $30, $29, $29.99, whatever. It smells totally different. This smells more oaky, for sure. This definitely has either less oak, or what they'll do is they use less new oak. So oak's used a lot of the time. So maybe they'll do barrel fermentation. So when they ferment the wine, they'll do it in the barrel rather than in a stainless steel tank. So you impart a little bit of a barrel flavor, but it's for a short period of time. Or sometimes they'll age the wine in oak. And it depends how much of the new oak. New oak will impart a lot more oak flavors to a wine versus first fill, second fill, third fill, or basically what they'll just call neutral oak. They did it in a giant oak vat, but didn't impart a whole lot of oak flavor, which adds a toastiness, a coconut. I mean, it depends. American oak, French oak, Hungarian oak, they all sort of have different profiles. French oak being sort of the most prestigious, American sort of being a little bit the more unctuous and pronounced and maybe heaviest of the oaks. I mean, it's a great Chardonnay. It's a little, you could taste the oak here. It's not as much on the nose, but I feel like I could taste it. But again, not overpowering oak. Neither of these are like chewing on a 2x4. So you got Burgundy and New Jersey right here, and I think two different tasting. It says less of the apple, more along the lines of like pear and star fruit. And this is more along that apple skin, baked apple, persimmon, unsweetened persimmon. Smells more oaky, but they kind of taste similarly oaky. But a great contrast. I think both excellent wines, slightly different, but both excellent. I really like open source. I really like Working Dog, period, as a New Jersey wine, only about a half hour from here. And I think they are trying to make very serious wine. Most of their wines, I say this about any winery, say in like a non-serious area, so non-Napa Sonoma, non-France, Italy, certain areas, that if the number of wines they offer are mostly sweet, it's not going to be a serious winemaking winery. And maybe that's my rule. If most of the wines, like Working Dog, are dry, and there's only a handful of sweet, just to kind of satisfy the masses that only drink sweet wine, which there's a lot of people that only drink sweet wine. I don't only drink wine. I prefer dry wines. And if I see that, I feel like they are trying to do something serious with Vinus vinifera. I do try to avoid the hybrid ones, so Chambourcin, Cabernet, the hybrid grapes, not a big fan of. I do like the Vinus vinifera, the Cabs, Merlots, Cab Franc, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, Riesling, Viognier. I'm trying to think of all the ones that Working Dog has. And they have all those Sangiovese. You know, and then some other wineries. There's two other great wineries. There's a winery called Heritage down in South Jersey I really dig. They used to have probably the best New Jersey red I'd ever had. It was called BDX. And it was a Bordeaux blend, and it was awesome. I don't know if they offer it anymore, but it was $50. I mean, it's a $50 red blend, Bordeaux blend out of New Jersey. I don't know if they still offer it. I thought it was probably New Jersey's best red, although Working Dog's Retriever, which is their oldest Cab Franc, aged the longest in some new oak, is also a fantastic, amazing red wine out of New Jersey. The other vineyards I like is there's a K-May winery, beautiful winery, like aesthetically pleasing, and has some pretty serious wine. And then there's Turdo. So it's tiny vineyard or tiny winery down in K-May, making a lot of Italian varietals. So they'll do Nebbiolo, which I've never had. Their Sangiovese was fantastic. Probably the best Sangiovese I've had in New Jersey. Not that I've had that many, but if you had to equate one, a little lighter than say the Chiantis of the world. Certainly lighter than Brunello, but maybe Vino Noble or something. But definitely pretty good. Good acid. It went really well with food. I never tried the Nebbiolo. I really would like to. They had a Nerodavola They had Pinot Gris, of course, but they had some others. I haven't been down there in a while. I do plan on going there probably this summer. Check out those wineries for sure, and see what they got. So, waxing poetic about New Jersey wineries, but if you're making good wine or attempting to make good wine, I could respect it. It doesn't have to be amazing, doesn't have to be perfect, but if you are attempting to do it, doing it the right way, and not overdoing it, not just going for like, let's just satisfy the masses with sugarifying the wine and making it recipe wine or just something to appease the masses. I went to Working Dog recently, and they told me, I asked about the Retriever, the Cab Franc, that's their highest end, let's call it their Grand Vin of red. And they said, you know what, the 2018 vintage just didn't produce the fruit and the quality we wanted to put Retriever. And I said, that is exactly the type of answer I would love to hear. Disappointing I couldn't get it, but very good that they're realizing that they need to make sure that wine is at a certain standard. It's a $40 wine. Maybe it even goes up the next time they put it out. Who knows? With just everything changing in the world, and feeling like alcohol and wine has all gone up exponentially. So we're at the 11-minute mark. The only other thing I ever wanted to mention was that I do love, so I was talking about the Wine Spectator article, California Chardonnays, and how they're becoming more restrained and more Burgundian, a little less oak, less manipulation, and just let the Chardonnay speak for itself with minimal work in the winery. I feel like some of my favorite California Chards have sort of done the same thing. They do have more of a full body-ish style, but the ones I really, really prefer are the ones from what's called the Wente clone. And that clone came over from Burgundy in, I think, the 70s or something. And I always try to find a new California winery that's using the Wente clone, and if it was planted in the 70s, I know like that's the legit California Chardonnay clone that came from Burgundy that I sort of try to seek out. So I know like Dumal's Chloe uses it. I know that the Ritchie Vineyard in Ramey uses it. Now those wines are $60-$70, but those are some of my favorite Chardonnays. I know recently I reviewed that Stony Hill, which is not, I don't even know if it's the Wente clone. I don't really even care. That wine is awesome. And it may even be to me better than the other ones. And I had the 2011 or 2012, and I have the 2013 and 14. I forget exactly what I tried, but just to 10 years of age on that Stony Hill. And I think the current vintage is only 2014 or 2015, which means they're not really even putting it out super early. They're really letting it sit and get a little bit of age. So there's just great Chardonnay out there that just needs to be tried, and forget what you used to know about chewing on a piece of 2x4, which is like, oh, this is awful, which is why everybody just got this horrible connotation of it. I mean, the movie Sideways made Merlot terrible, but Merlot is fantastic. I mean, in the right bank of Bordeaux, the predominant grape is Merlot. Merlot is amazing. Petrus, one of the most expensive wines in the world, in Bordeaux, is made from 100% Merlot. Merlot is a great complement to Cabernet in the left bank of Bordeaux. There are still great Merlots being made in California, but they're making a lot less because they've just fallen out of favor. It's Pinot and Cab. Forgetting the whites right now, meaning the reds. Cab and Pinot Noir are just super red hot when it comes to red wine, and there's nothing wrong with them. They are two different ends of the spectrum when it comes to flavor profiles, and Cab can be just big, bold, and huge, and just steak and expense account type wine if you're getting it from California, and then Pinot could be expense account type wine too, but it's got that elegance and that softness, and there's acidity, and it goes with different types of food. And there's just this nuance to it that's just very different. Call it maybe sexier in a classy way, and Cabernet sexier in just a flamboyant way. It's such a ridiculous way of explaining it, but how else do you explain something like that is probably the best analogy I can sort of give when it comes to just human-like terms that aren't wine-specific, There's cherry and spices in Pinot, and then there's blackberry and all these big heavy flavors that could be tobacco, but that's more, California's just big and unctuous and juicy and can be fruity and serious, of course, huge tannin, Pinot less tannin. So, you know, you got a thin skin grape, a thick skin grape, just different sides of the spectrum. Both awesome to me. You definitely pay a premium for both of those, Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir, no matter where you're getting it from. I feel like you do have to bring yourself to a higher price point to get the better quality ones because they are in high demand and there's so many of them produced. So sure enough, there's just a lot of it produced at a mediocre, if not recipe wine type level. I did a review on some of the cabs and they were god awful in that $15 and under range and $10 and under range. And then I did alternative reds. If they were okay, but then I got that Tarima Hill Monastrell from Spain. Looked like a legit bottle. It's definitely legit wine. $12, $13, and it tasted awesome. So sometimes you just got to go beyond your norm and just do what you want. A little too much preaching tonight, but back to the Chards. One final taste, and we'll call this one quits. Yeah, this Burgundy is very good. As it's getting warmer, you definitely feel the oak a little bit. It's a bigger wine. This is definitely a little bit more restrained and acidic. And on the palate, I could taste the oak. It's almost like they got equal levels of oak on the palate, so you just smell a little bit more in the nose. Love both of them. I'm just a fan of Chardonnay. Fan of a lot of wines. I'm only not a fan of a few, and I think I was asked recently. The Gewürztraminer is a white. It's pink skin. It's got this lychee fruit, very floral, very like fresh roses. It's just so floral on the nose, but it tastes like it too. It almost tastes like you're drinking rose petals, and it's just not my favorite. Pinotage is a sort of a lighter style wine out of South Africa. It's a cross between Pinot Noir and Cinsault. Just don't really love it. So, just others. Those are the two that come off top of my head. Those are two I'm just not a huge fan of. There's most certainly others, and as I think about them, I'll bring it up. But that's most everything else. Love trying new things. Impossible for me to pick my favorite wine. I know I said once that the Piedmont region probably would be the place I would drink from if I had to, gun to my head, because I just truly love the wines that come out of there, especially anything Nebbiolo. Well, most of the Nebbiolo, Barolo Barbarescos. Like, those wines are just so perfect. So, haven't done a longer video in a while. And there it is on the two Chardonnays and a number of other things. And with that, good night.